Hello, welcome back to the Challenger Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Glaser, relationship coach, personal trainer, and lifelong student of the Enneagram. Today, we're going to be talking about the most magnetic, exciting, misunderstood, and sometimes exhausting personality types of the Enneagram, the Type 7, the Enthusiast. Sevens are the people who bring energy into every room. They bring ideas, adventure, humor, and optimism. They're usually the ones saying, "What if we tried it this way?" Or "What if we tried this tonight?" But underneath that joy, curiosity, and spontaneity, there's often a deep fear of pain, limitation, and feeling trapped. So today we're going to break it down through the good, the bad, and the ugly as we close out this series on the Enneagram in relationship. Let's get into it. Here's the good and why everyone loves an Enneagram 7. They're probably my favorite personality type on the Enneagram. We complement each other really well. I can show up as intense, and just as much, the Enneagram 7 shows up intensely about fear of missing out. They're a type that invented FOMO. But at their best, sevens are life-giving. They bring possibility into spaces that feel stagnant. They help people remember that life can be joyful, playful, and full of opportunity. They have infectious optimism. Sevens see what could be instead of what's wrong. When things feel heavy, they're the ones saying, "We'll figure it out. This doesn't have to be the end. There's another way." That optimism can be incredibly grounding, especially for partners who tend to ruminate or get stuck in fear. They bring curiosity and adventure to relationships, and life with a 7 is rarely boring. They ideally, when they're at their best, they want to travel, try new food, start projects, learn new skills, say yes to experiences. And at the foundation, they bring momentum to relationships. They help their partners loosen up, take risks, and experience life more fully. Ultimately, they have emotional resilience as well. Healthy sevens are incredibly resilient. They bounce back, they adapt, they find meaning after disappointment. And when integrated, sevens can sit with the pain without being consumed by it. And that makes them powerful emotional companions. I have a good friend who's an Enneagram 7 who oftentimes in his professional life experiences that pain. And the most recent time following a layoff, he was very resilient, actually enjoyed his time off, and was ready to get back to work when the interviews started finally flowing in. I bring that up because his partner is also a 7. And they oftentimes go to the mountains for week-long vacations around the holidays. They go to Europe. They travel extensively, adore their children. And in complement, two sevens would most likely live a very extremely exciting relationship. Now, not at their worst, but the bad side of an Enneagram 7 and where they struggle is where things can get tricky, especially in relationships. And these are things that can come to the surface and need to be present and aware to. They tend to avoid pain. The core fear of a 7 is feeling trapped in pain, discomfort, or limitation. So what do they tend to do? They distract, they reframe, they move on too quickly. Instead of feeling grief, anger, or disappointment, they might make a joke, change the subject, jump to the next plan, or say fine when it's not. This can leave partners feeling unseen or emotionally abandoned. Additionally, they can have a fear of commitment, not because they don't care, but because commitment feels like loss of options, loss of freedom, loss of potential experiences. And sevens may struggle with long-term decisions or staying present when things get hard. And fully choosing one path, person, or identity is always a challenge for the Enneagram 7 when they're at average health or below average health. They want everything, and the relationships require choosing someone. And that's why they are averse to commitment. Lastly, before we jump into the ugly portion of a 7, sevens tend to be overpromising and yet underdeliver. Sevens get excited, really excited. They say yes quickly, and then they realize later they're overwhelmed. And so setting healthy boundaries for a 7 would be a really good thing for them to kind of get ahead of that overwhelm, that sense of overwhelm. When they tend to overpromise, this can show up as canceled plans, half-finished projects, emotional inconsistency, and I meant it at the time kind of energy, leaving partners feeling consumed, confused or destabilized by this pattern. And then finally, let's get to the worst version of a 7, the ugly. When a 7 is deeply unhealthy, this is the part most people don't talk about, because 7s look happy on the outside, even when things are falling apart internally. They tend to escape and numb. Unhealthy 7s may avoid pain at all costs. That avoidance can turn into overworking, overplanning, overstimulating, substance use, emotional detachment, and serial relationships. They're constantly chasing the next high to avoid sitting with themselves and their feelings. They tend to emotionally abandon, and when things get heavy, unhealthy 7s may disappear, both emotionally and physically. They might tend to shut down, leave relationships abruptly, avoid conflict entirely, or rewrite the story to avoid accountability. This can be devastating for partners who need emotional presence and repair. Finally, they have this restlessness that never seems to end, and at their worst, 7s can feel chronically dissatisfied. Nothing is good enough. No relationship is it. No moment lasts. They're constantly searching, but never arriving. And the tragedy in all of this is they're often running from pain that could actually set them free when they face it. Now, before I let you go, I want to give Enneagram 7s or people in relationship with Enneagram 7s a little bit of advice. If you're a 7 or you love one, here's what actually helps them. If you are a 7, practice staying when things get uncomfortable. Let joy and pain coexist. Finish what you start. Learn to grieve instead of skipping ahead to the next best thing. And ground yourself in the present moment. Growth for a 7 isn't about losing a joy. It's about deepening it. However, on the other side, if you love a 7, invite them to slow down without shaming them. Be curious, not critical, about their avoidance. Encourage follow through. Appreciate their enthusiasm and ask for consistency. Finally, create safety around hard conversations. A healthy 7 is joyful and grounded, playful and emotionally available. And I hope you enjoyed this last episode in this series of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before I let you go, though, before we jump to the next series, I want to just kind of encapsulate what we talked about today. At their best, 7s remind us why life is worth living. At their worst, they show us what happens when we run from pain instead of letting it teach us. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who lights up every room or someone who's always chasing the next thing. Give me a follow on TikTok at Dave Glaser, on Instagram at Coach Dave Glaser, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as this audio podcast on all major platforms. Until next week, when we're going to talk about how each Enneagram type shows up on dating apps, this is Dave in Denver wishing you health and happiness, joy, depth, and the courage to stay present wherever you're at in the world, even when it's uncomfortable. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.